All right. Hello and welcome everybody to Pancreation Philosophy, episode 150. I'm your host, Pocho Cruz, and I'm excited to bring on my guest today. Go ahead, introduce yourself, sir. How are you? Yeah.
Hey, Pocho. This is Hayk T. I'm good. Thanks for asking, man. Thanks for having me on your show. How are you?
Yeah. No, I'm doing great, man. So, yeah, you were recommended, of course, by my previous guest, Vlad. And yeah, he said that he thought that you'd have you have a lot to say. I know you have a book that just recently came out. Do you mind like telling the audience like the title of it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's called The Power of Mindset, which was
Okay.
probably the most appropriate title we can come up with. Took me like a year to figure it out. But I was writing that book for 3 years. So I
Okay.
didn't have a plan for it to be big. I didn't have a plan for it to be sold or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it was on Amazon. We pulled it out. I had to fire my publisher and self-publish later. So
Okay.
it's been a journey to learn how to actually the book business works. I'm
Okay.
still fresh into it. So yeah, it's called The Power of Mindset.
Okay.
It's not fully available on Amazon yet. It will be in the next couple of weeks.
In the next couple of weeks. Okay. So I guess diving back into like the beginning of the book. So how did you you said you've been or you start writing 3 years or been writing it for 3 years. So how did you get started, or what like made you want to start writing a book?
First, it was more of a manual. I
Mhm.
do a good amount of training for business, some life coaching and things like that. I wanted to have everything on the piece of paper because a lot of it was in my head, and often it's kind of a stressful place to be where all of your training and stuff is in your head. So I thought I'd put it into this manual, and I can just be sending that people to have people access to it, and I can share and just tell people where to go and get it. As I started writing, about 6 months of writing, I had about 400 pages of content. I started actually narrowing it down, and then next thing I realized I've got 300 pages of what it seemed like to be good content. So I approached a publishing company at the time, and they probably take about 10,000 book submittals a year. They approve, I want to say, anywhere between 50 to 100 books.
Okay.
They got back to me and said, we approve your book, which was honorable. But after a little bit of work with them, I realized I don't want to take the publishing route. I don't like people owning my content and telling me what to do.
Mhm.
So quickly realized how that works, pulled it back out, hired some, people to help me edit content and, ghostwriting and make it more American writing, because English is my third language. As you can imagine, I'm not the best writer out there.
Mhm.
Ideas are good, but the actual language itself was not.
Yeah.
So I went through like 4 different editors, and again, 3 years later, now we have it available. And long story short, the book talks about balance, right?
Okay.
It's not just about business success or, fitness success or having a, successful marriage. In my opinion, it's all about the 4 tanks that I really talk about, which is family, fitness, finances, and friendship. It took many years for me to realize what balance meant, because I moved to United States in 2001 for one goal, and the goal was to pursue the American dream.
Mhm.
And as you can imagine, poor boy growing up in a former Soviet Union country, I grew up without electricity, right? I remember just to get 2-3 hours of electricity at night, that was like the funnest thing. We play outside until it's dark, and then you see the whole neighborhood light up, and all the kids are running inside just to watch television for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Or mother lines up food, gets ready to cook for 2 hours, and then it's all we get, right? So growing up in that environment, I had a really big hole in my heart, thinking that money would take care of all my problems. And, American Dream got popular in 90s, in 2000, early 2000, me and my dad came here. We worked our butts off. Construction, pizzerias, you name it, just driving around, looking for deliveries. We did everything possible to make, a penny. So I got exposed to the insurance industry about 13 years ago.
Okay.
And did really well for me. My first year, we were in the top agencies in our 6 states.
Mhm.
We've led our territory for the last 10 years in a row. This year, our 10th year anniversary, with the #1 office in Washington in raw production. So it's been doing well for me. But about 5 years ago, I realized I'm overworked. I am out of shape. I gained a bunch of 50 pounds.
Oh, wow.
To me, being financially stable wasn't the answer, because I was more depressed. I was less happy. I had less friends, less relationships. Things were not going well in my life. To me, as soon as I hit my first 6-figure income, I realized this is not what I wanted, right? Started taking time off business, started hiring better, started training better, started losing weight, doing marathons, triathlons, all kinds of things. And I noticed it gave me a thing called time, which is what a lot of business owners do not really know how to create. They mainly focus on income, and they're still in there creating a job. They don't realize opening up a business, there's one point, and one point is to create jobs in the community. And the better jobs you create, the better business does. And that's when I realized less is more. I started doing less. Our production numbers went up. My winners in my business started producing more. I started getting more time, more income. My employees started making more money. More income came in. It impacted my lifestyle. But I used that time to religiously spend with myself and health and fitness brought the relationships into my life. I got married. I had kids. I started spending more time with friends. And I realized, again, it wasn't just about the financial tank. It was family, finances, friendship, and the fitness tank together, right? So how do you balance that out? How do you work on one thing? How do you take some time off of the other? And I think life is all about the continuous balancing of this imperfect balance that goes up and down. And it's okay to essentially let those things slip and by. So essentially that was the coaching I put into this book. And hopefully pretty soon it's going to go into grand launch and then we can get a bunch of copies out there.
Okay. So I guess question on like the fitness element of it, you mentioned you started doing like marathons and triathlons and stuff like that. Like what about those like, I guess like races or like events made you want to do them? Yeah.
To me, it was just, I wanted to lose weight.
Okay.
250 did not look good on me. I felt slow. I felt unhealthy, had a big gut, so to me, I mean, ideally everybody's this threshold is marathon, right? It sounded like pretty impressive to me too.
Yes.
So I thought to myself, like running is one of the main ways to lose weight. So what's holding me back? So I remember I went out, I got in the gym, I did 3 miles on a treadmill, my ankles swell. I couldn't finish 3 miles. So, one of my mentors in the business, he said, he used to be a stockbroker, and he said, sometimes when you don't know what companies to invest into for your stocks to do well, look for a CEO that runs marathons. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. And I asked him too, he's like, I don't know either, but I remember at the time when we were selling a lot of stocks, he goes, when we consistently look for CEOs that ran marathons, their stocks just tend to do better. Law of large numbers. I'm like, that's interesting to know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so he didn't have the answer either. So I'm like, let me at least find out the answer. So I learned a lesson the hard way. It took me 6 months to go from not being able to run at all. And every week I would add a mile, right? So I got to, week, 20 something, and I was at 20 plus miles. The day came, I did my first 26-mile run, and we had a quick meeting with my mentor group, and my mentor Ali was there as well. We were talking about the lesson. Here's the lesson. You learn that nobody cares. You got to get tougher. It doesn't get easier. You just need to get stronger. And also it taught me the value of influence. I noticed when I was getting results, I would come into work and I would kind of show off my results to my team. I would show him a smartwatch I got that measured my steps, my pace was picking up, my weight was dropping. I would show them the digital side of what it looks like on the application that it came with my Garmin watch. All of them started getting the similar watches. All of them got into races. A lot of them started doing Spartan races with me, 5Ks and half marathons with me. Again, influence-wise, it improved my organization and improved my motivation level. And it gave me a lot of time where I'm forcefully listening to audiobooks, right? Because it's not just about music at all times. Education should never end, right? So it's not about high school, college, or, postgraduate program. It's about listening to people that know what they're talking about, kind of like this podcast, and getting ideas. Because a lot of good ideas are not necessarily new, but they're reminders with different stories. And that's why I think podcasts and audiobooks, they're very important. And there's also a lot of new lessons to learn. People that think that have everything figured out, in my opinion, are really dumb, right? So so that was the lesson for why is it important to invest into a company that has a CEO who does endurance races.
So it really is interesting though how that kind of, because people, they don't really attribute like the physical, like the connection between like the physical and the mental, like from there. But if anything, I mean, I'm sure you can relate, just like that there's a large mental aspect in like physical feats for sure.
Oh, it's interconnected. I think you can't be physically healthy and not to be mentally healthy, right? And vice versa. I think mentally healthy people are physically healthy as well. See some people who are, I remember the beginning phase of my business, I was working my tail off, and that's when I was gaining weight. And one time I remember one of my chapters, I called it out of shape fat guy in the Ferrari. And I do remember, like, I was broke my first year in business. I had no hope of making it. And it was a rough first year in business. And I remember I pulled up to Starbucks and I was buying coffee for my team. And I see this nice F430 Ferrari, beautiful car. Blonde girlfriend gets out of there. And then I look over, convertible, right? Drop top. And there's this huge guy sitting there with his belly rubbing against the steering wheel. He's just sweating, barely, like almost breathing out of shape. And I'm like, I'm going to look like this guy. And if looking like this guy is what gets me that Ferrari, I do not want this kind of a lifestyle, right? So
Yeah.
that was another, and again, I'm not putting emphasis in saying it's bad to be overweight. I have friends who are, and I'm kind of influencing, but that's obesity. It causes vascular, issues with health. It causes depression. It causes so many other issues with the health as well. So I think mental obesity is another issue as well, and they're kind of interconnected.
Oh, for sure.
To me, I think physical health comes even before mental health, because mental health often struggles. And when I skip a few days of training, my wife even noticed my mood is different. I'm actually mentally weaker for a couple of days if I'm not training. So to me, I'm associating both together. There's no either or, it's both. And how you do anything is how you do everything. In my opinion, you should do everything best way, not to just look good, but feel good and also act good. So you can not just do good others by yourself, but also do good things to others as well. And also really believe in the law of attraction, that you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So if you do want better relationships and healthier people and more successful people, because everybody wants better friends and better connections. Well, you need to become that better friend and better connection so others want you, right? So when that happens, you start bringing the same thing around. That's why, selfishly speaking, take care of the man in the mirror. Everything else follows.
Got it. And I think that leads to the next question then, because you mentioned friendships from there as one of the what do you call it, pillars or tenets of that. So when you're looking for friendships, or I think that's something that, because when people are young or when kids, it seems easy to make friends. What is how does friendship play a role in people's lives, that you feel it kind of gets not looked directly upon?
The friendship tank came to me after I was losing the friendship tank. So it's almost like you have to lose an arm to realize how important your arm was to you, because you take advantage of your arm, right? And you realize, oh my goodness, I could have done things with two hands. Now I only have one, right? So what could have I done not to? And I think could have, should have, would have, to live in regrets, to live in the past. And I was sacrificing a lot of my relationships pursuing this American dream. I wasn't really hanging out with friends. To me, I'm like, you know what? Those who matter don't mind. Those who mind don't matter. Not always true. Some of your friends really want you to kind of maintain. There's a saying, ounce of preventative care is better than a pound of medicine, right? It took me to lose some relationships to realize how important it was to me. And there was a story I heard really stood out to me. It was about a college professor who came in front of his students with two big empty jars. And he said, here's the example. These jars represent your life. And he threw tennis balls inside. And tennis balls filled out the jars to the top, and he's asking his class, are these things full? And everybody's like, yeah, they're full of tennis balls. Then he grabs marbles. He throws marbles that fill up the gaps in between the tennis balls. And he's like, is it full now? And the students are kind of laughing like, yeah, it's full. Then he grabs sand. He pours sand in the jars, and then sand fills in the gaps between the marbles and the tennis balls. He's like, is it full now? And students are having fun with him saying, yeah, it is. And then at the end, he goes like this. Here's the last example. He grabs 2 cups of coffee or 2 cups of beer in some example, right? Pours it into the jars. And he says, this is your life. The tennis balls can represent your job or your family. The marbles could represent, something else that takes up time, like friends and, career commitments and stuff like that. The sand can be ambiguity, difficulty, like all the stuff that you might be facing that seems like there's not much hope left. But I just want to let you know, no matter how full your life jar is, you should always make a time for a cup of coffee with your friend, or a glass of beer, right? Or a bottle of beer with your friend. That story was significant to me because in my early 20s, I was wearing myself out in business and thinking there's no way I can do this long term. Mm-hmm. Once I brought the friendship tank back, where I started taking lunch breaks with my friends, I started taking workout breaks from 3 to 6. So I was working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 5 to 6 days a week. Sundays, I would take it off for church and family. I started taking gym breaks 3 to 6, and I would ask my friends to join me. Again, way for me to spend time away from work, reset, right? And I think it's an important piece of recharging your batteries to spend the time, because I was getting so productive thinking every conversation needs to be business. It needs to be productive. It needs to bring in income. I was forgetting that BS conversation over a cup of coffee, or even, again, it's not about the coffee. It's about sometimes the workout, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It was so vital because it would re-energize you. And again, bring back the balance, because as soon as you lower one part of the family finances, finishes, and friendship tank, one goes down, the other goes up, right? So if I noticed my financial tank was going down, well, I was having too much time. I was spending too much time with my friends. I was spending too much time on fitness. And as soon as my financial tank would go up, I'm probably not doing as much as fitness and not spending time with family. So the key was to do this, right? How do you go up and down, up and down? Some weeks I'm training 20 hours a week. Some weeks I'm training 5. because my business requires attention, because my wife was being neglected, because my kids need my time, right? So again, I don't believe when somebody says, oh, I got this schedule, here's what I do. It needs to be tweaked at all times, because guess what? Life is not a perfect schedule, right?
Life doesn't go on schedule.
So things happen. Like, again, like, knock on wood, things are great right now, but just 2 weeks ago, one of my team members, really good employees, got diagnosed with cancer, and God gave her the strength and everything to fight it off, and they had a surgery. Things are going well. But guess what happens when your top employees pulled away from your business? You're in there doing stuff you haven't done. I was picking up phone calls. My clients are like, is everything okay? Why are you answering the phone? I'm like, well, everything is okay, not okay. And so, I want to respect their privacy, but now she's good. So we're telling people what happened.
Nice. So, and I guess, so is the, in writing a book, it's because I know other writers, and you're saying that, you had like 400 pages, and then it's a matter of like, whittling that down, or getting like, I guess what's important. So how's the revisionist process, or like going through like, okay, what's like, how'd you get like, all that content, and how are you like, I guess, editing it and revising it like from there?
I realized less is more. It's not about explaining the concept I started school in Russia, Moscow, when I was in first grade, right? Third grade, moved back to Armenia, my home country, from third to sixth there, and then seventh through college here in US. So my foundation is like crap when it comes to knowing a language properly, right? So I was taking 2-3 words to say what would take 1.5, right? I was taking 5 words to say what would take 3 words. And that was a help editors would give me. So essentially you spend a lot of money and hire an editor. I would say I've got the most expensive book anybody will ever read. The amount of money and time I spent on there, and the amount of time I took off my business to actually get the book done. I have a lot of research and references about studies, Harvard Business School of Law studies, Sweden European studies about cancer research and mental strength and power of positive thinking, and some examples and basic things how to improve a business and health and family and relationships. There's about, I want to say $30,000 worth of editing in that book.
Oh, wow.
That's how bad of a writer I was. But it's funny. Once I hired my very last editor, and that was called Chicago Manual Style Editing. They have to put the book into Chicago Manual Style script. That's how you're able to publish your book. And she said, I noticed you kind of struggled at the very beginning, and towards the last, 4, 5, 6 chapters, it was flowing. There was almost no editing left. I said, well, because I was learning how to write better as I wrote this book. If nothing outside of this, when I wrote this book, a lot of my theories made more sense to me. As a matter of fact, I didn't know about the 4F formula until I wrote the book. Because I knew I was telling people to get healthier, but I wasn't speaking about an order. And at the very beginning, when I was writing the book, I was talking about there's a specific order, which I was completely wrong. I first said, you take care of your financial tank. When you take care of financial tank, you buy your time back, you bring your health back. Once you bring your health back, you have energy to spend time with friends and family and build more relationships. And with that, you meet that special person, have some kids, have a family. There's your 4Fs. And I was so wrong by thinking that to myself, there's an order. Like we just talked about earlier, life doesn't have a perfect schedule, right? So some people, you take care of the biggest monkey on your back first. If to you, it's your relationship, you take care of that first. You sacrifice time with other things. If to you, it's health, you drop other things and you go drop that weight or get into fitness, right? Lift weights, whatever it is, right? If to you, it's the financial tank, work your butt off. Sacrifice some time with some of your friends. Yes. Some will disappear, some will come, but you need to realize if that's what's hurting you and it's always there, it's going to impact your friendship even worse than not spending time with your friends. So sometimes you need to allocate that time towards taking that monkey off your back and allocate your time accordingly to rebalance this inexisting perfect balance that people spend their whole life looking for, which again, it's inexistent. It doesn't exist, right? So there's a balance, but there's no perfect balance.
There's no perfect balance. There's no like order. I mean, as you said, there's like no schedule. You can't like, oh, well, on this day, we'll go.
I remember as I wrote the book, I was furious. I had to go back and re-edit all the stuff I talked about because I talked about an order, right? I'm giving people instructions, but I'm like, there's instructions, but it's not in specific order. That's why I even say in my book, you can read my book and jump chapters and come back. There's no order of how I wrote the book. Every chapter has its own specific lesson. And I actually called a few of my peers who got PhDs and they're doctors and asked them the same thing. I'm like, guys, you wrote a thesis, right? You had to defend your thesis when you did your dissertation. Can I ask you, like, you had your thesis, as you wrote about it, did you ever change your thoughts about your thesis? And a lot of them said, yeah, exactly why they make us write, because when you do, you're babysitting your deepest thoughts on the piece of paper or the computer. And when you do that, it makes more sense. Yeah. So it's very normal to have a thesis and completely disagree with yourself, which makes the editing more difficult, but it makes the understanding of your thesis more clear.
Got it. Because it's like you're transcribing your thoughts, but then by seeing how you're thinking, you actually get a chance to organize it and see and see it in reality from there. Yeah.
You're also thinking there's going to be people reading this, right?
Yeah.
There's your pride's at stake. Like, you're talking about something you're spending a lot of time on. You better know your information, right?
Got it.
And that's why as soon as I was able to discover that there's no balance to myself when I was talking about this, I became a lot more confident talking about the subject. I'll defend it in front of anyone.
Yeah. That's true, because your words are representing you. So you got like, oh, well, I got to make sure that it represents something good. Like, from
correct.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. And then, I mean, clearly you put a lot of both time, money into the book. I guess, like, throughout, what was the hardest part, or I guess so far, of writing or like constructing the book, for you?
Yeah. I mean, outside of the basics of editing, hardest part was about motivating yourself to do something from scratch. Me and one of my employees were talking about the other day. He was listening to a podcast somewhere where they said it's very important to reinvent yourself and learn something from scratch. And it's I think, vital part of humility in yourself, bringing you down to reality, to realize, because you're not perfect. Because some people might figure something out on PhD and pro level, but that's all they're doing for the rest of their life. And you kind of get full of yourself thinking that you're a professional, you're great at everything. But you never take time off to learn to play a piano from scratch, to learn to write a book from scratch, to learn to run from scratch. And I realized unintentionally, I've always been looking for doing things from scratch. When I learned to run from scratch, I got into triathlons. I didn't know how to swim. I could do 2 laps in the pool. Well, I had to work my way up to like 200 laps. I did. I learned the stroke. I learned the breathing. I learned proper goggles and swimming gear. Then I had to get into bikes. I learned that there's 2 kinds of bikes you got to buy when you get in triathlons: road bike and a triathlon bike. There's 2 different positions. There's a trainer you got to get. There's the new world, right? And then, so to me, exposing myself to be able to do things from scratch was a big part of humility as well. And I guess the reason why I use this example, I think it's another vital part about understanding who you are, is to bring humility in your life by doing things to start from scratch. So again, it is difficult to answer your question, why and what. I subconsciously like doing things from scratch to bring back a little bit more humble attitude into my life, because when you figure things out, you get a little cocky with your own knowledge.
Yeah. No, I think that's totally true. And just like in terms of reinventing yourself, or in terms of finding new aspects, because now you got to be a beginner again in something. And
reality check that you're not so great, right?
Yeah.
So,
it's a hard thing for a lot of people to do, but I think
you gotta swallow your pride.
Oh, no, for sure. And then in essence, by once taking, especially like, I'm sure, like, once you look at the new skills and you realize like how much you progress in that gives you confidence into like starting more from scratch, because knowing that, I can start from something from the beginning and I can get to like a competent level. Like, correct. From there. Yeah. And
you quit avoiding commitments and fear, because a lot of people don't commit to things because of fear of failure. And to us, fear of failure, I actually was reading about this. The reason why we are so fearful of risk, biologically, genetically, we're actually built to think risk is death. And if you think about thousands of years of human survival, if we did not check the cave, there could be a lion that comes out and eats you, right? If you weren't cautious of a sound in the bushes, you better look, otherwise you might get attacked by a wild animal and killed. That's why when you hear something, we naturally look, right? We're looking out for safety. So to us, risk meant you're putting yourself at a chance of dying. So imagine we have thousands of years of genetics, and the last 67 years we've been exposed to business and commitments and all these different things. So naturally we're afraid of committing to something new because it's a risk. We're associating it with death. But when you do enough of that, you realize it's not deadly.
Got it.
Failure is great. I think failure is one of the best lessons out there. It's a teacher. Lean towards it, want it, do it, but walk out of it with the lesson, because that's how wisdom is built, in my opinion.
Got it. Yeah. It's like, it's confronting Yeah, it's like confronting more things or confronting more failure or like putting yourself in situations like that.
Yeah. Well,
I
Pocho,
think
you do
that's,
MMA, right?
yes, I do.
I
Yeah.
mean, are punches any less hard? No,
No.
you've learned the lesson.
Yeah,
You
you
got to
learn
learn to
to,
block and
yeah.
duck, right?
Yeah.
And you've got better. You've gotten
Yeah.
stronger. You got more confident. And I bet you adopting that skill into your life has made you a more confident and capable person.
Oh yeah, for
But you
sure.
took that risk to get punched in the face several
Yes.
times to get back up.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
and it's not just physical punches you got to take to the face. Again, the new lessons and the
Mhm.
business, whether sometimes the reality check to realize your marriage is not perfect, right? You know, you don't get along, you disagree, you argue, but it's okay. Life is all
Yeah.
about speed bumps. It's not about what happens to you, it's how you react and how
Yes.
you adapt.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's an important thing. It's not, yeah, it isn't about what happens. It is how you react, because you can't control necessarily everything that happens to you, but you are in control of how you react to things. Like
Yeah.
from there.
Correct. I mean, you and I
Yeah.
would get put into the
Yeah.
same position where somebody throws a couple of punches.
Yeah.
Trust me, your results will be much, much better than mine. You will duck and you block. I might get hit in the face, right? So,
Yeah.
but that's the outcome of the risk you've put to learn to block yourself, right?
Yeah.
To attack forward. As a matter of fact, to win that situation.
Mhm.
And I think life goes the same way, right? You continuously have to strengthen yourself. So when the life does punch you and kick you and throw you to the ground, you got to know how to get back up. Because like it or not, you're getting kicked and punched sometimes on daily, weekly, monthly basis, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to react to that. You got to understand how to develop and adapt to it. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with just the tenets of, yeah, just finding new skills and finding new things that you're not quite as good at, because I think that also then reinforces, like, I guess, skill building and things that you are more competent in, and you can see like, oh, like just seeing once again through a beginner's eyes, like from there. Like I think just in, I mean, you asked me at the beginning like how I started this podcast. I just did it because I wanted to, I just wanted to talk to interesting people and learn more things. And I realized, oh yeah, there's a lot of, there's a lot of audio engineering things, a lot of things that I never once considered. But if I had never like put myself in that position to like take that risk, then I would never have learned or gotten to meet all these people. So yeah,
there's
like,
absolutely zero growth in comfort.
Yeah. Oh no, very, very, very true. It's like that growth exists like outside your comfort zone.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So totally agree. So I guess in terms of your, I mean, still on the, publishing side of your book, like what is, I guess, like, do you have like any goals or anything that, like, I mean, you've spent a lot of time with the book. Like, what do you hope to achieve, like, with it? Yeah.
I'm a man of God.
Yeah.
I truly believe in
Mm-hmm.
Making people's day, helping. The amount of free labor I do in coaching, it's not even funny, right? And I'm not, doing that for money, to be honest. My business pays me well enough to find joy in helping. That's why I became a deacon at my church. I like volunteering and doing things. I'm helping, with rallies and fundraisers and stuff like that. I think for the same reason why I wrote the book, I didn't write it for no other reason but to provide people. Health or whole family, but I just want to shed a light on that subject for people to understand that life isn't about just one thing. So I guess I would love the book to be a bestseller, not for money. I would love if there was a difference between knowing I made an impact and difference on like 100,000 people's lives versus it made me $1 million. I'll take the impact on 100,000 people's lives any day, no question. Again, I didn't get into the book business because I wanted to make money selling books. I wanted to get into the book business because I wanted to get the philosophy and theories and the work and things that I've done in my personal life that has really worked. And a lot of people have read it, including my mentors and people that read thousands of books and said, wow, this needs to be out in front of people because it is a lot of good information out there. But when I had the blessing of people that are doctorates and master's degrees and the ones who read my foreigners writing, who came to America when I was 13, I'm able to actually put this in writing and they blessed me. And these people are a lot more successful than me. They're worth hundreds of millions of dollars and a lot more successful. When their blessing was there, I said, you know what? It's good enough for them. It's good enough for the world. So I want to spread the message more than anything else.
For sure. I think, so then in terms of, like finding like mentors and finding people like that, like how'd you go about like, I guess like tracking mentors or finding like groups of people that you look up to? Yeah.
I believe you find what you seek.
Mm.
A lot of people say mentors are good for you. I want a mentor. but nobody's looking for them, and they're right in front of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know how many people in business that I've somewhat helped, and I said, hey, keep in touch, I would love to help you, call me on my cell phone, let's talk when we're driving, let me give you some pointers, and vice versa. I call and ask for advice 24/7. I don't have things figured out, but I've done this specific insurance business for 10 years. I've got most things figured out, and questionably more successfully than most people in a similar business in the country. So I've got a lot of good information I've stole from others, but I've always seeked the mentorship. And I used to bug people who knew what they were talking about a lot, to the point where I started getting the subject as good as them. And there's been a lot of people who unfortunately did not make it in this business. And if they would have called me once a month, they would have been just fine with a multi-six-figure income, with their life being balanced. But that's why a lot of people say, I want mentorship and coaching. I want a, person to admire, look up to. They're saying that, but they're not acting like they really mean it. So that's why mentors are everywhere. People are my mentors that don't even know they are. We have a guy in my church named Levon. I admire to him like there's no tomorrow. I mean, he's the guy that shows up early. He stays in late and cleans up. He's got a wonderful relationship with his family, wonderful kids, a beautiful relationship with his spouse, great deacon at my church. He's older than I am, right? So we get to volunteer at church, and I look at him, I'm like, when I get to his age, I want to have his level of success. Very successful, by the way, person at a large corporation at Google, actually. So there's a lot of things I admire certain people that don't even know. And I also pick their brain often. But there's also a couple of my mentors who know they're my mentors, and I call them for random stuff sometimes. Hey, what would you do in this? And sometimes they're like, why are you even asking me that, right? But I would love to hear their response, because I want to know how I should react once in a while, right? So again, Coach Ola, if I'm looking for MMA advice, why wouldn't I pick up the call and call you, right? My brother's a pro fighter, right? So why wouldn't I pick his brain? Like this Thanksgiving, I'm gonna run from my house, which is about 8 miles to his house, and he's gonna kick my butt in his garage. So I want to learn how to defend myself. So maybe my next thing, starting from scratch, is I've messed with MMA a little bit, jiu-jitsu, but I never really fully committed. I think after some Ironman races in 2021, hopefully they don't get canceled again. Cage fighting might be my next passion, and I might see you soon. So
sounds good. I think that's the thing. It's like that determinable action, because like you said, there's a lot of people that want stuff, but there's few people that actually go out and try and get it, like from there, because you hear that a lot.
I always say there's a lot of kings and queens of ideas and philosophies, but there's very few executionists, right? I can't tell you how many people want things, but they just don't want it bad enough. They just don't want it bad enough.
No, that is very true. A lot of kings and queens of ideas. That's so true. But it's like, whereas it really is as simple as that. Like there's no, there is no secret. Like the truth is out there. It's just a matter of them wanting it and going to do it. So it's always been puzzling, like, to me, in terms of that. But
I've been guilty of ignoring mentorship myself. This whole COVID situation kind of got me kind of closed off, and I'm not really meeting with too many of my, friends and business partners and, peers and mentors, because we're all trying to maintain this COVID rule to stay clean, I guess. But I also preach about this, and I'm not practicing what I'm preaching right now. I'm like, who do you call before you go to work, right? If you're not having a good day, who do you call? You get off work, who do you call, right? So I think that conversation before you walk into office or workspace or a place where people depend on your mood and your motivation, it's very important if you're that figure, you're that manager, the leader, mentor figure. Again, if it's a workspace, or even if you're a father when you come home, or a husband, what do you do to put yourself in a mindset to make sure that interaction is going to be positive, it's going to be good, it's going to be impactful? And I think who you call and who you talk to is a huge part of that. You call the gossiper, guess what? You come home, you continue gossiping. You call the person who's going to set you straight and say, hey, you got to, work hard. Let's talk about what's going on, what's on your mind. You share, you vent, you get things off your chest. You walk home, you're more present. Your spouse enjoys you, your children enjoy you. Who do you call before you get to work? Do you walk into work and talk about the gossip from last night, or you walk into the office and, hey, I learned something new. Hey, by the way, now you're showing genuine interest and care to help your team and talk to your customers and that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of times we think about controlling our own thoughts, but a lot of times the environment we surround ourselves with really primes our mind, even though, and it could bring out the bad and the good. So what you surround yourself with is really, really important. There's a good quote, you're the sum of 5 people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And that can change. Some weeks you talk to
Yeah.
positive people, some weeks you talk to negative people.
Yeah.
But I believe it's a underutilized power. People talking about, investing into stocks and bonds. Why don't you invest into time with good people? Because I promise you that will be your best return on investment outside of any stocks or real estate. It's who you spend time with. That's a really, really big one.
Oh yeah, for sure. You do become like what you surround yourself in. And like I remember a good quote like I heard was that you're you don't necessarily control your environment. You become a product of what you're around.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. You're not gonna get if you're around a bunch of bad things that you'll end up becoming like that. It's just like how it goes.
It's funny.
Yeah.
They looked at
Yeah.
Facebook statistics.
Yeah.
I can't remember percentage, but it was a large percentage of obese people on Facebook had large percentage of obese friends on Facebook. You didn't, you don't see that, fitness model and they have a bunch of friends who are out of shape.
Yeah.
Right. It was literally, they attracted what they were.
Yes.
Or they adapted to their environment. Because here's what I believe about law of attraction, right? My positive energy was so overwhelming for some people. They left my life. They quit working for me. They found a way away from me. But also it was so magnetic, like for some people, they were naturally attracted to me. And they started working for me, working with me and relationships, right? And a lot of people actually call me and ask me like, because I have a really amazing, I would say probably one of the best teams in the country as far as that works for me. And people ask me, where do you find your team? I'm like, there's no website. You go and winner hired. It's how do you, if you want your team to be 9 out of 10, you almost have to be 9 to 10 out of 10 yourself.
Yes.
Right. So you don't find people that have all this. You get them with potential, because if they're comfortable around positivity, drive, coachability, motivation, and that's what you are, they're going to stick around. They're going to absorb it. And some of them will become better than you. But if they're not comfortable around that, they're going to find a way out. That's what law of attraction is. Because if you're this negative, complaintful gossip, well, the positive person won't be comfortable around you. They'll quit. They won't work for you or with you. Your partner will bounce on you, right? But the person who's just like you will come around. You'll be comfortable with them. They'll be comfortable with you. Next thing you know, 5 of your closest friends are the gossips, are the, lazies, are the snooze button hitters, right? And that's why you attract what you are, not what you want. So unfortunately, the truth is some people that call me asking me for advice of where to find, winner employees and winner team members for your business. Yeah. My answer is look in the mirror.
Yeah. Look at the person in the mirror again. Yeah. No, that's very true. And okay, we can start wrapping up. Hayk, I guess like how can people, find out more about your book, or how can they find out more about you? Like what's a good resource for them to look out?
Yeah. For now, there's been a lot of people contacting me through Instagram, which is Hayk_agency, HAYK, or I have a website, haykt.org, HAYKT.org. People have been signing up to get potentially my book coming up soon. I'm going to be doing pay for shipping, get a free copy of my book soon. It's going to be a launch coming up on social media pages. I've got a pretty big marketing firm helping me with that. So we're waiting for 2,000 copies to come in. As soon as it's in, I'm going to be essentially giving them all away for free. So once that rolls out, I guess a lot of people in our East Side, Seattle area will see the ads. It's going to be all over the place. Again, like I said, I don't mind spending more money getting the message out there. I did not do this for profit. I'm doing this for more selfish reasons of helping people, because it makes me feel good about myself. Selfishly speaking.
Well, that's beautiful. Well, thank you for your time, Hayk. Any other words you want to part with the viewers before we take off?
Nothing else. I love quotes, and I've referenced this quote in my book multiple times, and I've heard this quote I've been sharing with everybody. So I'll share this with you, Pochul, and your following. To live in fear is to live in the future. To live in regret is to live in the past. To live happily, take advantage of your life, is to live in the present, right? And all the good opportunities, I believe, come from the moment. Because when you become, you put your mind where your feet are, you take advantage of your job. You take advantage of the relationship in front of you, your date, or the money-making tool, whatever it is in front of you, the workout. Because sometimes when your mind is somewhere else, you're not giving your best, right?
You're not giving your all,
So that's why 98% of what we fear never happens. That's why stop thinking about the fears of future. You're fine today, you'll be fine tomorrow. And quit reliving the past, because when you're thinking about could have, should have, would have, again, you're impacting the opportunity to make the most of yourself. It's like, try to mind wander during a cage fight. Like you're getting killed, right? So that's why think in all aspects of life, if in any way I have any message to share, I think be present and be in the moment, because all the good opportunities in life come from the spot, not from somewhere else.
Oh, for sure. All right. Thank you again for your time, Hayk. All right. That's been that's been Pet Creation Philosophy. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Bye.